Why do you smell like another man?
He had never touched her. Not once. Not in 2 years of living under the same roof. But that night, he stepped closer than ever before, inhaled once, and asked a question no one had ever dared to ask her. Why do you smell like another man? The words hung in the air between them like a blade waiting to fall. She stood frozen in the doorway of the kitchen she just finished cleaning, her hands still damp from washing his dinner dishes. He stood 3 feet away. Closer than he'd ever been. Close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw. The calculation in his eyes. The danger radiating from him like heat. The Korean Mafia boss who ruled this house with silence and absolute control was waiting for an answer. And she had 3 words that would change everything. But first, she had to decide whether to say them. Are you still watching right now? Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Kindly subscribe to our channel for stories that can make you smile, and can also make you cry for absolute strangers. Now, let's get into the story. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of her pulse pounding in her ears. Minho stood perfectly still. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just waiting. That was somehow worse than violence. Because Minho, the man everyone in this house called Sajangnam, the boss, never waited for anyone. Never asked questions he didn't already know the answers to. Never showed curiosity when indifference had always been his weapon. But he was asking now. And the way he'd stepped closer, the way he'd leaned in just enough to catch the scent on her clothes, on her skin, suggested this wasn't casual. This mattered. Ji-yoon's mind raced through possible responses. Deny it. I don't know what you're talking about. Deflect. It must be detergent from the laundry. Stay silent. Say nothing. Wait for him to lose interest. But she'd worked in this house long enough to know that Minho never lost interest once something caught his attention. And she'd apparently caught it. I'm waiting, he said. His voice was calm. Reasonable. The kind of calm that preceded storms. Ji-yoon looked at him directly for the first time in weeks. In 2 years of working as his live-in maid, she'd learned the unwritten rules. Don't make eye contact unless spoken to. Don't linger in rooms he occupies. Don't ask questions. Don't exist louder than absolutely necessary. She'd been invisible. Safe. Forgotten. Until tonight. It's not what you think, she said quietly. Minho's expression didn't change. What do I think? Ji-yoon realized the trap too late. He hadn't accused her of anything. Hadn't implied anything. Had simply asked a question. And she just confirmed there was something to hide. His eyes narrowed slightly. Answer the question, Ji-yoon. Why do you smell like another man? The sound of her name in his voice was startling. He'd never used it before. Had barely acknowledged she had a name. She opened her mouth. The 3 words were right there. Simple. True. Devastating. But before she could speak them, the front door opened. Voices in the hallway. Minho's security returning from whatever business had kept them out tonight. The moment shattered. Minho stepped back. The distance between them returned to its normal, careful measure. We'll continue this conversation, he said. Not a question. A promise. Then he walked out of the kitchen, leaving Ji-yoon alone with her racing heart and the knowledge that invisibility was no longer protection. She'd been seen. And in Minho's world, being seen was the most dangerous thing you could be. What Ji-yoon didn't know yet, what she wouldn't understand until it was too late, was that Minho's question wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't even about her. It was about a pattern he noticed. A deviation from routine. A scent that didn't belong in his carefully controlled environment. And in his world, deviations were threats until proven otherwise. But what Minho didn't know, what he wouldn't discover until much later, was that the scent on Ji-yoon's clothes, the other man he'd detected, was the reason she'd been placed in this house in the first place. The reason she'd spent 2 years being invisible. The reason the rules had protected her. And the reason breaking those rules now would unravel everything. because everyone misunderstood that moment in the kitchen, including Minho himself. He thought he was asking about loyalty. She thought he was asking about betrayal. But the truth was something neither of them had considered. And that truth, when it finally came out, would prove that some questions should never be asked. Because the answers destroy more than they reveal. But to understand why that question mattered, you have to see how quiet her life was before it was ever asked. Ji-yoon's life in Minho's house followed a rhythm so precise it felt like choreography. 5:30 a.m. Wake. Dressed in the plain uniform all household staff wore. Hair pulled back. No jewelry. No perfume. Nothing that drew attention. 6 a.m. Prepare Minho's breakfast. He never ate with anyone. The meal was left in the dining room. She was gone before he arrived. 7 a.m. Clean the main rooms. Living room. Study. Hallways. Never his bedroom. Someone else handled that. 12 p.m. Lunch preparation. Same routine. Cook, set, disappear. Afternoon, laundry. Errands. Whatever the head of household assigned. Evening, dinner preparation. The most elaborate meal of the day, though Minho often ate alone or with associates she never saw. Night, return to her small room on the 3rd floor. The staff quarters. Small but private. Her only sanctuary. For 2 years, this routine had been unbroken. For 2 years, Minho had been a presence she felt rather than saw. Footsteps in hallways. Doors closing. The weight of authority that permeated the house even when he wasn't visible. They'd crossed paths maybe a dozen times. Brief encounters. Her bowing, him nodding, both moving past each other like ships in carefully charted lanes. He never spoke to her directly. Never looked at her for more than a second. Never acknowledged her beyond the basic courtesy afforded to competent staff. It was perfect. Safe. Exactly what she'd been told to maintain. But there were things about the house that didn't make sense. Small details that Ji-yoon had noticed but never questioned. Like the way Minho's security watched her. Not suspiciously. Not threateningly. But carefully. Like they were protecting something. Or the way certain rooms were off limits. Not just to her, but to all staff. Rooms that stayed locked. That no one talked about. Or the fact that Minho ate every meal alone. Even when associates visited, they met in the study. Never over food. Never in relaxed settings. Or the way he moved through the house like a ghost. Silent. Controlled. Never impulsive. Never casual. Ji-yoon had worked for wealthy families before. Had seen power. Had understood hierarchy. But this was different. Minho wasn't just wealthy. He was feared. The other staff spoke about him in whispers. Told her to follow rules she didn't fully understand. Never asked him questions. Never be in a room alone with him. Never make him notice you. That last one had been easy. Ji-yoon was good at being invisible. Had learned it as a survival skill long before coming to this house. But invisibility required consistency. Required routine. Required nothing unusual. And 3 days ago, something unusual had happened. Ji-yoon had broken routine. Just once. For reasons Minho couldn't possibly understand. She'd left the house during her afternoon off. Had met someone she wasn't supposed to meet. Had returned with a scent on her clothes she couldn't wash out in time. And somehow, in a house where Minho barely looked at her, where she was supposed to be invisible. He'd noticed. The morning after the kitchen confrontation, Ji-yoon woke to find everything exactly the same. Same routine. Same breakfast preparation. Same careful choreography of avoidance. Except Minho didn't come down for breakfast. At 7:15 a.m., the head of household, a stern woman named Mrs. Kang, knocked on the kitchen door. Sejang-nam wants his breakfast brought to his study. You'll deliver it. Ji-yoon's hands stilled on the tray she'd been preparing. Me specifically? Mrs. Kang's expression was unreadable. Those were his instructions. This had never happened before. Ji-yoon carried the tray through hallways that suddenly felt longer, narrower, more oppressive. She knocked on the study door. Enter. Minho sat behind his desk, reading something on his laptop. He didn't look up when she entered. Ji-yoon set the tray on the side table. Bowed. Turned to leave. Stay. She froze. Minho closed his laptop. Looked at her directly. You didn't answer my question last night. We were interrupted. Ji-yoon said carefully. We're not interrupted now. Silence stretched between them. The scent on your clothes, Minho said. Tobacco. Specific brand. Not sold in Korea. Imported. Expensive. And cologne. Also specific. Also expensive. You don't smoke. You don't wear cologne. Which means you were close to someone who does. Ji-yoon's pulse quickened. He'd analyzed it. Broken it down. Treated it like intelligence. I met someone, she admitted. During my afternoon off. A friend. What kind of friend embraces their maid close enough to leave their scent? The kind who doesn't see me as a maid. Something flickered in Minho's expression. Who is he? No one you know. Everyone in Seoul is someone I know, Minho said. Or someone I should know about. Particularly if they're close to someone in my house. He's not part of your world, Ji-yoon said. He's just someone from before. From my life before this. And you met him 3 days ago. Yes. Why? The question was simple. The answer was anything but. He needed to see me, Ji-yoon said. For what purpose? Personal reasons. Minho stood. Walked around the desk. Stopped closer than was comfortable. I've been very tolerant of your privacy, he said quietly. I don't ask where you go on your days off. Don't monitor your personal communications. Don't involve myself in your life outside this house. But when something from outside enters my space, when I can smell it on my staff, when routines change, I pay attention. It won't happen again, Ji-yoon said. That's not an answer to my question. I don't owe you an answer. The words came out before she could stop them. Too sharp. Too defiant. Minho's expression didn't change. But the air between them shifted. Became heavier. You're right, he said. You don't owe me answers about your personal life. But you do owe me consistency. Predictability. The same person who walks in my door every day. No deviations. No surprises. That's the agreement when you work in my house. I understand. Do you? Minho asked. Because from where I'm standing, you introduced an unknown element into my environment. And in my world, unknown elements are threats until proven otherwise. He turned away. Walked back to his desk. You're dismissed. Don't let it happen again. Ji-yoon left the study on shaking legs. She'd been warned. Threatened politely. Reminded of her place. But what terrified her most was the realization that Minho was right. She had introduced something unknown. And if he dug deeper, if he asked more questions, if he investigated, he would discover the truth she'd spent 2 years hiding. The truth that would destroy everything. Over the next week, everything changed and nothing changed. Ji-yoon maintained her routine. Perfect. Precise. No deviations. But Minho's behavior shifted in ways she couldn't predict. He started appearing in rooms she was cleaning. Not obviously. Not intrusively. Just there. Reading. Working. Existing in spaces he'd normally avoid during staff hours. He stood closer when they passed in hallways. Not touching. Not threatening. Just closer. Inside the careful distance that had always separated them. He watched her. She felt it constantly. The weight of his attention like pressure on her skin. And the questions continued. Subtle. Indirect. But persistent. Your accent. Where are you from originally? How did you find this position? Do you have family in Seoul? Questions Ji-yoon had been prepared to answer when she first arrived. Had rehearsed responses for. But now, with Minho's focus trained on her, every answer felt like a test she might fail. Then Mrs. Kong pulled her aside one afternoon. "Sejangnam is asking questions about you," she said quietly. "About your background. Your references. Be careful." "Careful of what?" "Of standing out," Mrs. Kong said. "In this house, invisible is safe. Visible is dangerous. I haven't done anything wrong." "Doesn't matter," Mrs. Kong replied. "What matters is whether Sejangnam thinks you have. And right now, he's thinking." That night, June broke protocol. She left the house after her shift ended. Took the subway across Seoul to a neighborhood Minho's people wouldn't frequent. To meet the man whose scent had started all of this. He was waiting in a quiet cafe. Older. Weathered. Wearing the same expensive cologne that had betrayed her. "You're being watched," he said without preamble. "More carefully than before." "I know," June replied. Minho noticed. "He's asking questions. Then we're running out of time." "I need more time." "I can't just." "You don't have more time," he interrupted. "Either you complete the mission or you abort. But this middle ground? Where you're visible enough to draw attention but not committed enough to finish? That gets you killed." "I'm close," Ji-yoon insisted. "I'm in the house. I have access. I just need." "You need to decide," he said. "Are you his maid or are you mine? Because you can't be both anymore. He's too smart. He'll figure it out. I can handle Minho." The man laughed. Bitter. Disbelieving. "No one handles Minho. People survive him if they're lucky. You're playing a game you can't win." "What do you want me to do?" Ji-yoon asked. "Walk away? Waste 2 years? I want you to finish what you started," he said. "Or admit you can't and let me extract you before he figures out what you really are." Ji-yoon wanted to argue. Wanted to insist she was still in control. But sitting across from this man, smelling the cologne that had given her away, she realized he was right. She'd spent 2 years being invisible. And 1 week being seen. And being seen by Minho meant everything she'd built was collapsing. When she returned to the house that night, Minho was waiting in the kitchen. Same place. Same position. Like he'd known she'd come back late. "We need to talk," he said. "It's late," Ji-yoon replied. "Whatever this is can wait until morning." "No," Minho said. "It can't. Because I just received a very interesting phone call. About you. About who you really are. About why you're really in my house." Ji-yoon felt her world stop. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes," Minho said quietly. "You do. And now you're going to tell me the truth. All of it. Or you're going to leave this house in a way you won't recover from." He stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the anger carefully controlled beneath his calm expression. Close enough that when he spoke again, she felt every word like a blade. "Why do you smell like another man, Ji-yoon? And don't tell me he's just a friend. Because friends don't plant spies in enemy houses. But agencies do." The accusation hung in the air. And Ji-yoon realized she had 3 choices. Deny everything and hope he couldn't prove it. Run and confirm his suspicions. Or tell the truth and hope mercy existed in a man who'd built an empire on fear. She chose the truth. Not the whole truth. But enough. "I was sent here," she said quietly. 2 years ago. By people who wanted information about you. About your operations. Your weaknesses. Your routines. Minho's expression didn't change. And I didn't give them anything. Why not? Because the man I met 3 days ago? The one who sent you noticed? He's the one who placed me here. And when I saw him, he asked me why I hadn't delivered. Why I'd gone silent. Why I'd stopped reporting. What did you tell him? Ji-yoon met Minho's eyes. I told him I couldn't do it. That I'd been here too long. Seen too much. That the person they thought you were isn't who you actually are. And what am I? Minho asked. Human, Ji-yoon said. Lonely. Careful. Not the monster they described. Silence filled the kitchen. Then Minho did something unexpected. He laughed. Actually laughed. A sound without humor but full of something like recognition. "You've been in my house for 2 years," he said. "Watching me. Judging whether I deserve to be destroyed. And you decided I don't. How kind of you. I didn't mean." "No, I understand perfectly," Minho interrupted. "You were sent here as a weapon. You chose to become furniture instead. And now you're caught between the people who sent you and the person you were sent to destroy. Did I summarize that correctly?" Ji-yoon said nothing. "Here's what's going to happen," Minho said. "You're going to answer one question. Honestly. And depending on your answer, you'll either leave this house safely or you won't leave it at all." He leaned closer. "The scent on your clothes. The man you met. Is he still trying to use you against me?" Ji-yoon swallowed. "Yes." "And what does he want you to do?" She could lie. Should lie. But Minho's eyes were already seeing through her. "He wants me to finish the mission," she admitted. "Get information. Plant surveillance. Help them move against you. And will you?" 3 words. That's all she had left. 3 words that would either save her or destroy her. Ji-yoon took a breath. Met his eyes. Said the truth. "Not anymore. If you're still watching right now, drop a eyes in the comments. I want to know you're here." Minho stared at her for a long moment. Processing. Calculating. Deciding. Then he stepped back. Put distance between them again. "Pack your things," he said. "You leave tonight." Ji-yoon felt her heart sink. "Minho." "Don't," he interrupted. "Don't try to explain. Don't apologize. Don't make this harder than it is. You came into my house under false pretenses. You deceived me for 2 years. The fact that you grew a conscience doesn't erase that. I never gave them anything," Ji-yoon said desperately. "I protected you. I could have destroyed you 100 times and I didn't. You protected yourself," Minho corrected. "You chose inaction because action required commitment you didn't have. That's not loyalty. That's cowardice." The word hit like a slap. "You're right," Ji-yoon said quietly. "I was a coward. I couldn't complete the mission, but I couldn't walk away either. I just existed. In this house. Near you. Watching you live this lonely, controlled life and thinking maybe you deserve better than what they wanted to do to you. I don't need your pity." "It's not pity," Ji-yoon said. "It's recognition. I know what it's like to live behind walls. To trust no one. To go through every day performing a role instead of living a life. I recognized it because I'm doing the same thing." Minho's jaw tightened. "You have 1 hour. After that, my security will remove you. And Ji-yoon? If I ever see you again, if your people ever try this again, the consequences won't be exile. They'll be permanent. Understand?" "I understand." She turned to leave. "Ji-yoon!" She stopped. "The man you met. The one who sent you here. What's his name?" She could refuse. Could protect her handler. Could maintain some shred of professional loyalty. But Minho had just given her exile instead of execution. Had chosen mercy when violence would have been justified. "Choi Tae-min," she said. "Former intelligence. Freelance now. Works for whoever pays. And who's paying? I don't know. He never told me. Just that you were a target. That information about you was valuable. That I'd be compensated well for doing this." Minho nodded once. "Thank you for the honesty. Now go." Ji-yoon went to her room. Started packing the few belongings she'd accumulated. 2 years. Gone. Just like that. She'd failed the mission. Lost the job. Betrayed both sides and satisfied neither. But at least she was alive. She was almost finished packing when her phone buzzed. A text from Tae-min. "Did you tell him about me?" Ji-yoon stared at the message. How did he know? How could he possibly know what had just happened? Unless he had other sources in the house. Other eyes. Other ways of knowing what happened inside these walls. She typed back. Yes. He's letting me leave. Mission's over. The response came immediately. Not over. He knows about me now. That makes him dangerous. You need to finish this. Tonight. Before you leave. No. Not a request. You exposed me. Now you fix it. Or I expose you to people much less forgiving than Minho. Ji-yoon felt ice in her veins. What do you want me to do? His study. Third drawer. USB drive with financial records. Take it. Leave it in the garden. I'll retrieve it. Then you disappear and we're done. He'll know. He already knows you betrayed him. What's one more betrayal? At least this way you get paid for 2 years of work. Ji-yoon looked at her packed bag. At the room that had been home for 2 years. At the choice that wasn't really a choice. She could refuse. Could walk away clean. Could maintain the small shred of integrity she had left. Or she could do what Taemin asked. Complete the mission. Get paid. Justify 2 years of lies. She texted back. Give me 30 minutes. Then she left her room and went downstairs. Not to her own exit, but to Minho's study. The house was quiet. Security doing their rounds. Minho somewhere else. No one watching. She opened the study door. Walked to the desk. Third drawer. Locked. Of course it was locked. Ji-yoon pulled out the small lockpick kit Taemin had given her 2 years ago. The one she'd never used. Never needed. Never wanted to need. The lock opened with a soft click. Inside the drawer, documents. Files. A passport. And yes, a USB drive. Ji-yoon reached for it. Looking for something? She spun around. Minho stood in the doorway. Arms crossed. Expression unreadable. I thought you were packing, he said. Ji-yoon's hand was still in the drawer. Caught. Completely. I was, she managed. And then you decided to rob me on your way out. It's not like that. No? Minho walked into the room. Closed the door behind him. Then explain what it's like. Explain why you're in my study, picking the lock on my desk, reaching for information you have no right to access. Ji-yoon pulled her hand back. Empty. Taemin. He contacted me. Said I needed to complete the mission. That if I didn't he'd what? Minho interrupted. Expose you? To who? I already know what you are. I'm already letting you leave. What leverage could he possibly have? He has other clients. People who don't show mercy. He said if I exposed him and didn't deliver, he'd send them after me. So you chose to betray me again, Minho said. Even after I showed you mercy. Even after I gave you exile instead of execution. You chose theft. I chose survival, Ji-yoon said. No, Minho corrected. You chose cowardice. Again. Just like you chose it for 2 years. Just like you'll keep choosing it until someone forces you to be brave. He walked to the desk. Opened the drawer Ji-yoon had just unlocked. Pulled out the USB drive. This is what Taemin wants. He held it up. Financial records. Transaction histories. Enough information to destroy my operations and implicate me in crimes that would end my freedom. And you were just going to take it and hand it over. I didn't take it. Ji-yoon protested weakly. Only because I caught you. He was right. And they both knew it. Minho pocketed the USB drive. Then looked at Ji-yoon with something like disappointment. I'm going to ask you one more question, he said. And this time, I want the truth. Not the convenient truth. Not the self-serving truth. The actual truth. Okay. Why do you smell like another man? Ji-yoon stared at him. The question was the same. But the context had changed. The meaning had shifted. And suddenly she understood what he was really asking. Not why she met Taemin. But why she kept letting Taemin control her? Why she kept choosing him over her own integrity? Why the scent of his manipulation clung to her even after she'd claimed to break free? Because, Ji-yoon said quietly, I've been running from who I am for so long that I let other people define me. Taemin. This mission. Even you. I let all of you decide who I should be instead of deciding for myself. And who are you? Minho asked. Ji-yoon took a breath. Said the 3 words she should have said from the beginning. I don't know. Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Ji-yoon never expected. He sat down. Not behind his desk, but in one of the chairs across from it. The guest chair. The one that made them equals instead of adversaries. Do you want to know why I never touched you? He asked. Ji-yoon nodded, not trusting her voice. Because I knew, Minho said simply. Not specifics. Not names. Not details. But I knew you weren't who you claimed to be. I knew the first week you were here. The words hit like thunder. What? Your references were too perfect. Your background too clean. Your skills too competent for someone who claimed to be desperate for work. Everything about you screamed professional placement. Then why did you keep me? Because I wanted to see what you'd do, Minho said. I wanted to see if you'd follow through. If you'd betray me. If you'd become the weapon they sent you to be. And week after week, month after month, you didn't. You just existed. Cleaned my house. Cooked my meals. Became part of the routine. You were testing me. I was giving you choices, Minho corrected. Every day, you chose not to betray me. Even though you could have. Even though that was your mission. You chose something else. Cowardice, Ji-yoon said, echoing his earlier accusation. Mercy, Minho countered. You showed me mercy. For 2 years. Without even realizing that's what you were doing. Ji-yoon felt tears on her face. I don't understand. The other man Taemin, Minho said. He represents a version of you that follows orders. That completes missions. That treats people as targets instead of human beings. His scent on you, his control over you, that's the part of yourself you haven't let go of. And you? I represent the choice you keep making and keep doubting. The choice to be something other than what you were trained to be. Minho stood. Walked to his desk. Opened a different drawer. Pulled out a file. He handed it to Ji-yoon. She opened it. Found photos. Surveillance reports. Documents. All about her. Her real background. Her real training. Her real history. You've known everything, she whispered. For 18 months, Minho confirmed. I had you investigated thoroughly. Found out exactly who sent you, why they wanted information on me, what they planned to do with it. And you let me stay anyway. I let you choose, Minho said. Every day. To be the spy or be the person. You kept choosing person. I kept letting you. Why? Because I understood, Minho said quietly. What it's like to be defined by what people need you to be instead of who you are. To live behind roles and performances. To forget there's a difference between surviving and living. He took the file back. Put it in the drawer. The scent you carry isn't Taemin's cologne, Ji-yoon. It's the past you can't wash off. The identity you were given but never chose. The question isn't why you smell like another man. The question is when you'll finally stop letting him define you. Ji-yoon sat down. The weight of 2 years crashing over her. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide, Minho said. Really decide. Not in response to Taemin's threats. Not in response to my mercy. But for yourself. Who do you want to be? The spy who completes missions? The coward who runs away? Or someone new entirely? What if I don't know? Then you figure it out, Minho said. But you don't figure it out here. You don't figure it out under my roof while pretending to be my maid. You leave. You build something real. You become someone who isn't defined by the people trying to use you. And Taemin? I'll handle Taemin, Minho said. You've told me everything I need to know. He's finished trying to use you against me. He'll come after me. Not if you disappear properly, Minho replied. Not if you stop being someone he can find. Stop being June the spy. Stop being June the maid. Become someone new. I don't have resources for that. Money, documents, safety. Minho pulled an envelope from his desk. Handed it to her. Inside, cash, a new passport, documents for a new identity. I've been preparing this for 6 months, he said. Waiting for you to be ready to use it. Waiting for you to choose yourself instead of letting others choose for you. Ji-yoon stared at the envelope. At freedom. At terrifying possibility. Why? She whispered. Why help me after everything? Because you showed me mercy for 2 years, Minho said. Even when you didn't know you were doing it. This is me returning the favor. Ji-yoon left Minho's house at 3 a.m. Not in shame. Not in exile. But in choice. She took the envelope. The new identity. The chance Minho had given her. But she left something behind too. On the kitchen counter, where they'd had their first confrontation, she left a note. 3 words. The same 3 words she'd finally said in his study. I don't know. Not an answer. But an acknowledgement. That she didn't know who she was. Didn't know who she'd become. Didn't know where she was going. But she was choosing to find out. Minho found the note at dawn. Read it. Understood. Then he burned it. Destroyed Ji-yoon's file. Erased every trace of her from his house, his records, his security footage. As far as the world was concerned, she'd never existed. Which meant she could exist anywhere. As anyone. The next morning, Taemin received a visit from Minho's security. He never contacted Ji-yoon again. Some said he left the country. Some said he simply disappeared. Some said Minho had shown him the same mercy he'd shown Ji-yoon, the chance to start over, far away, with the understanding that returning would be fatal. No one knew for sure. But the message was clear. Ji-yoon was no longer a game piece anyone could use. Minho's house returned to routine. New staff. New rhythms. The same careful choreography of control and distance. But sometimes, late at night, Minho would stand in the kitchen where he'd ask that question. Why do you smell like another man? And he'd remember Ji-yoon's answer. The real answer. The one that had taken 2 years and 1 moment of honesty. I don't know. 3 words that contained more truth than any elaborate explanation. Because she didn't know who she was. But she was willing to find out. And that, Minho thought, was braver than any spy, any mission, any role could ever be. 6 months later, in a small city Minho would never know about, a woman opened a cafe. She called it 3 words. The name meant nothing to anyone except her. It was a reminder. Of a question she couldn't answer. Of an identity she'd finally stopped trying to define. Of the freedom that came from admitting you don't know who you are and choosing to discover it anyway. She didn't know if Minho ever thought about her. Didn't know if he'd kept his promise to handle Taemin. Didn't know if the mercy he'd shown her was kindness or strategy. But she knew one thing. The scent of another man had finally washed away. Not because she'd scrubbed it off. But because she'd stopped letting other people's expectations cling to her skin. And maybe that's what freedom actually was. Not the absence of constraints. But the presence of choice. The choice to say, I don't know. And mean it. The choice to walk away from people trying to define you. The choice to smell like yourself, whoever that turned out to be. If someone protects you by keeping their distance, was it love, or control disguised as mercy? And if someone gives you the freedom to discover who you are, was that kindness, or the ultimate manipulation? Some questions don't have answers. They just have choices. And the choice Ji-yoon made, to leave, to start over, to admit she didn't know who she was, that wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing she'd ever done. If this story made you feel something, and you're still not subscribed, why not? These stories take time, care, and intention. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Next week, a woman woke from a coma to discover her sister had married her fiancé. But she could hear everything they said while she was under, and what she heard changed her forever. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell me, would you have stayed and completed the mission? Or would you have chosen to leave and find yourself? Comment mission if you would have stayed. Comment freedom if you would have left. Where are you watching from? Have you ever had to choose between who people expected you to be and who you wanted to become? Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.